in the beginning, was it scary to do large scale commitments?
Very, very, very scary. So I've got multiple hats. I got a finance hat. I've got an engineering hat. I got an infrastructure hat. I've got a FinOps hat. It's a lot.
Yeah, FinOps is definitely the role of many hats. That's for sure. Welcome to FinOps in Action. I'm your host, Alon Arvatz. Each week, I'll sit down with FinOps experts to explore the toughest challenges between FinOps and engineering. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of FinOps in Action. Today, I have a very, very special guest that works in an unordinary company. He actually leads the FinOps Center of Excellence at his company, and he was a speaker at FinOps X, where he shared his personal FinOps journey. I'm happy to welcome VP of Cloud Assets and Risk Management at SAP NS2, Gordon Douglas. Gordon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Alon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and it's so great to see you.
Thank you.
Gordon, please share with us, what is the one thing you got wrong when you started your FinOps career?
Yeah. So there are numerous things, but a couple of things I think I would bring up. Early on, and this is 8 years ago now. What I really didn't understand fully was when to execute on commitment purchases. Initially, I was treating commitments as though they were licensing, basically, where, if I had to do a renewal, I would do it every year. If there was an uplift at any point in time on the commitments, I would do that at a certain regular basis. It might be 6 months, 9 months, whatever. However, reading, throwing the FinOps Foundation a plug, after reading the second revision of the FinOps book, there was conversations and talk and written description as far as when to actually buy on commitments. And it's really to buy commitments as soon as possible, because you lose the opportunity, the savings opportunity with a commitment when the on-demand comes into play. So after reading the book and understanding it and having that aha moment going, oh no, I got to be quick about this. We don't want to wait too long on this. Otherwise we start hemorrhaging money. So what we ended up doing at the end of the day, or what I ended up putting onto the team that I've got, we ended up putting in commitments within 7 days of the on-demand being seen. So this also required participation of our finance group coming in and saying, okay, yep, that makes sense. What's the on-demand? How much we're going to get for savings? And things of that nature. Now, I'm from an environment where I'm multi-cloud. So I've got a lot of experience with all three hyperscalers. And then in addition to that, I've got single tenant environments and then multi-tenant environments. And detecting this spend is really hard, which kind of plays into the next thing, or the lesson learned that I had to come into. And that was anomaly detection. And anomaly detection with commitments is easy to see. Because you'll see, there is only so many things you can actually buy a commitment on. So with that said, the commitments was easy finding for anomaly detection. However, the one problem on the anomaly detection that we had was the spend that would occur where we wouldn't see it over a couple different types of periods. We could see anomaly detection, and the hyperscalers are great on this. They'll tell you, oh, there was a 10% increase on XYZ service. So we'll see that really easy. But one of the other problems with anomaly detection is, what if you have object store that is slowly creeping up over 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, and it might be, $5 a day or something like that. But if you look at that over a year, you got $60. It's not massive amounts of money, but you'll see a $60 increase over a year. Where's your life cycle management policies? So that was something else that I would say we missed, is that we really had to really refine what was an anomaly and how to identify it, and then tracking it and making sure you don't miss it, because that $60 over a year, that could be substantial.
Absolutely. And I would actually love to deep dive into both subjects, but each separately, because each subject is a whole world. So let's start with the commitment. And I think you said something very interesting when you actually emphasized speed. which is something I feel is not emphasized too much in the FinOps industry in general. So I come from security. In security, mean time to remediation is a fundamental metric that you have to track. It's not only if you do the thing, it's how fast you do it. Do you feel that in FinOps we should talk more about speed and time to remediation, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that as well. And tracking and monitoring and managing that is really hard because you do have to understand what your pain threshold is for some of this stuff. Um, because if going to your comment about speed, this is part of the iron triangle that a lot of us FinOps practitioners look at. How do you balance all this? And well, it kind of goes back to my comment about your pain threshold. Because if you're okay waiting 6 months, to jump on something that you can, recognize some savings on, that may be okay. But there may be situations where you can't wait a week. And that's one of the, going back to one of the processes that we have in place, we review all of our spend once a week on anomalies. So we have an anomaly detection board that we review all of this spend and try to understand, where did we see some increases? And was that an okay increase? As another example, as far as, something that's really hard to track, try to track your network usage, try to track that. It's not like we're all looking at packet captures, every day and going, oh, okay, that's good traffic. That's bad traffic. And then I should say, when I say not monitoring that, monitoring the spend on it, you do have, from the security world, you need to know, the anomalies of what's happening, or is it a false alarm or a negative alarm or whatever. So, being able to manage that, that's another aspect of it.
For sure. And it's actually very interesting the way you describe your process around anomalies, because also here sounds you're not treating it as something that need an immediate attention. It's something that you work on weekly cycles. And early on, you mentioned that you also need to look at on longer term, so you can identify the small increment that creep over time. So I wonder, how do you see anomaly detection? Do you see it as something that require immediate attention, or something that is like, I don't know, require midterm attention?
Yeah, like a lot of the answers you and I hear nowadays, it depends. Um, there is some anomalies that, if you see, something that is way beyond any threshold that you're not accustomed to or you're not comfortable with, you need to get on it. And I'll give you an example. Early on, I had a conversation with one of the other with an engineering manager, where I had just spent a substantial amount of money on containing and managing some EC2 on demand costs. And I was all happy. I was dancing, dancing on the desk. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, all of a sudden that spend started going up again. And this was my first real large commitment purchase, and monitoring that. And I was looking at the cost and usage billing report, or cost explorer, every day. And I was seeing it go up substantially every day. And I was like, what is going on? I just reduced the cost by 70%. Now this environment is spiking up again. So I was having a panic attack. And after calming down a little bit and talking to the technical account management teams and what's going on, and they were like, yeah, what you did was perfect. Like, okay, good. But why is this cost going up on this account? And they were like, well, it looks like it's this. I was like, yeah, I know that. Don't tell me something I already know. Why is it happening though? So went back to the engineering manager and said, hey, what's happening here? So unfortunately, I didn't have anything in writing, but the engineering manager said, I told you we were going to be growing these clusters in the month of August. And I was like, not going to say anything. I'm going to accept fault. Don't have anything in writing. I'm going to go after that and take care of that spend. Went back to finance, asked for a bunch more money, and said, hey, I didn't realize this was happening. Sorry, got to tighten up the communication. Going to take care of this. Lo and behold, in September, boom, the cost dropped again. And I was happy, even though I had to spend a lot of money to do it. But yeah, it was fixed.
By the way, Gordon, personal question. In the beginning, was it scary to do large scale commitments?
Very, very, very scary. It was very scary. The commitment purchases can be, when you're making a 3-year commitment, it can be sizable. Um, and this is kind of something in a term that I've adopted due to other FinOps practitioners talking to me about this, is that my color of money has changed over time. Back in 2018, when I made that initial commitment purchase, it was big. Since then, with the growth of the company itself and the business that we've been doing, it's small now. So I kind of look at it going, yeah, that was a lot of money. It definitely was. But now when I look at things, it was just like, yeah, I've kind of dwarfed that at this point. In addition to that, is just my comfort level of doing what I'm doing. I know it's the right thing. So, going back years ago, it was just like, I think I'm doing the right thing. Now that I know how commitments working back and forth, it's like, yeah, I know I'm going to be doing the right money and I can show the savings. So,
Wow, Gordon, I really have to thank you for sharing this. I'm sure there are a lot of FinOps people out there in the beginning of their career who are really stressed out about purchasing suddenly millions of dollars of commitments. And I'm sure they were really happy to hear that right now. And going back to the anomaly detection, and something I just have to ask because I'm extremely curious. So you mentioned about the fact that sometimes anomalies are not like an instant spike. Sometimes they creep over time. How do you handle this today?
yeah, it goes back to we have regular cadences with both internally within my group itself. In addition to that, also with engineering and operations, just to see and make sure that they understand or they can justify what's going on. Because in some cases, not going over the spiky things, but the things that trend over time. When monitoring, watching those, sometimes we got to go back to the groups and ask, going, hey, is this expected? Or hey, can you go review this and give us justification on what's going on? And the other thing that we do, and this is, partly as far as a mature FinOps practice goes, we get all this put into tickets and stuff, and we track that so we can go back and understand what's going on. But the other thing is, there's the face-to-face communication is just, super important that happens. That way we get the quick and honest dialogue, and, we can read body language or anything like that that's needed. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
very interesting. And I have to tell you, I keep getting back to the topic of the speed. Like it's something that is going along the entire conversation, speed of buying commitments, and sometimes you need to respond quickly to anomalies. Sometimes you can take more time to respond. It is a very, very interesting topic in my opinion. And I wonder if you're putting emphasis of adding the speed aspect also to the optimization of the infrastructure, because when it's only you, it's a lot easier to jump and buy commitment quickly. You're not dependent on anyone. And when it comes to optimization of the infrastructure, I would guess you need the engineer's engagement. So I wonder when it comes to optimization of infrastructure, you make or you put emphasis on the speed as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some situations where I've been involved where the timing is never fast enough. It's just the way I am. So I expect things to happen quickly. And I do pressure a lot of the teams on that to understand what's going on. But honestly, I've seen some things where, and it's painful, where it's taken us a year and a half to get inside and fix some things. Because sometimes when you're dealing and working with production infrastructures, you got to go through change management. Sometimes you have to make sure your customer base is aware that you're going to be changing some things. Sometimes we have to make sure that our customers are okay with us changing some things. In addition to that, we have situations where we're bound by specific retention periods for storage, let's say. So we can't just go in and delete things. Sometimes we have to make sure that we're, walking slowly. We're doing the wrong thing, or sorry, doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing. Excuse me. So, it's one of these things, measure twice, cut once. So we do have to take time in these things. And that's something that I've had to learn is patience is sometimes key because, I remember Joe Daly talking about some stuff one time going, he deleted customer data. And that's the worst thing you want to do. And I come from an infrastructure background. I'm used to buying infrastructure, deploying it, and supporting it. The number of times me working in a data center and blowing away somebody's storage accidentally, oops, time to start calling up somebody to see if we can restore from tape. I go that far back. So anyways, and it's something similar. You got to be really careful in some of this stuff that you do. So understanding or being knowledgeable and understanding about everything that's in place is paramount.
Absolutely. And do you feel that the fact that you're maybe more careful is also due to the fact that you treat government customers?
Yes, definitely so. However, what I've learned, being on both the commercial and public space now, data is data. All right, it still is the same. You have to treat it highly, and securely, and carefully. So, regardless of the space, I do believe you have to treat it the same. However, the point that I will say is, in the public sector space, there's more scrutiny on the tooling and technology used and how it's used. It has to be used, or um, it has to be secured a bit more than you will see than in the commercial space. So that's a subtle difference, but to me, still, data is data.
Data is data. Gotcha. And you also mentioned aspects of security. Is that something that you're also responsible for? Because in your title, you have risk assessment. So I'm curious if that's also part of the scope of your work.
It is. So I work with every single persona within SAP NS2. And I do work with a lot of people on the SAP side as well. However, for the security side of things, our security requirements are government regulated by the US government. And that's what SAP NS2 is we are the US sovereign cloud. And, with that said, everything that we use within our environment is FedRAMP certified, basically, and CMMC. Well, CMMC is still coming, but anyways, the FedRAMP side of things is one of the key controls that we use and manage a lot of the infrastructure that we have.
Very interesting. And the fact that you're highly, highly regulated and you serve mostly government customers, does that influence your FinOps work, or FinOps is FinOps no matter where?
Yeah, yes and no. So FinOps is FinOps, agreed. However, adopting some of the tools and technology, that's where things get a little squirrely, let's say, for me. The tooling and technologies that we use, they've got to be able to run or be put into a FedRAMP environment. So you get a lot of the SaaS providers. One of the first questions, and this is something that I've always run into whenever I've gone into any of the conferences that the hyperscalers go where they run. I remember early on when as soon as I said the word GovCloud or FedRAMP or anything like that, it was usually going, let me find somebody that you can talk to. And somebody would have to run out. In some cases, like, oh, that person's at lunch. They're like, okay, I'll come back later. So that was always one of the tricky things is, people really understood what that FedRAMP side of thing meant. And, I would say 80, and still today, probably 70, 80% of the companies I talk to that are, software vendors, sometimes they don't have a government or a public sector wing that know this stuff. So, it's still taking hold. I will say things have gotten definitely better for the government, the regulated industry side of things. But on the FinOps side of things, it is pretty much all the same.
Okay, maybe you should go more to government conferences.
Yeah, and there are some. There definitely are some, and that's usually where I found the best places to go. Where, and talking to a lot of the vendors, so it's, oh yeah, we know all about that, and it's just like, oh great. So get to talk to them in public sector speak.
Yeah. And obviously, from tool set perspective, at least from external vendors, you're more limited because not all of them are FedRAMP. I assume most of them want to get FedRAMP one day. Government is a very, very big market, but it takes time. So I wonder, how does that influence you? Does that mean that you adopt tools or technologies for FinOps later because we have to wait for FedRAMP? or it just means that you lean more towards buy versus or build versus buy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So you pretty much answered it in a subtle way. So there are definitely technologies that I see all the time, and in a lot of cases, they're not FedRAMP. It takes to get the FedRAMP compliance. It takes time, and not just a year. Right? It takes time. So usually those technologies, like, oh, you've got a great, and that's the conversation I have. You got a great tool. I'd love to use it, but as a SaaS provider, I can't use you unless you're FedRAMP moderate or FedRAMP high. So that's the one thing. It's just like, I'll come talk to you later, see you in a year. Let's see where you are after that. So at that point, it's usually going, okay, great tool. They have more features and functionality that I have, but I'm going to build something similar to it. And I definitely have done that. Some of the, cloud financial management side of things, the FinOps survey was, how many tools you got? Yeah, I've got over 3. All right. I use the native stuff. I do something off the shelf. And then I've got some custom stuff that we've had to develop as well. So it's kind of like, going, okay, get all this stuff to support and manage. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
Interesting. And do you have a dedicated team of engineers to develop these tools, or you get
I
these from
do.
your head of base? Oh, wow.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So that was something early on that we did. So early on, there was basically 3 people. So there was me, another full-time employee that's been with me for a while. And then I brought an intern on that had a computer science background from Virginia Tech, came in, started writing code for us and taking, pulling data from the hyperscalers, putting them into what's called SAP Analytics Cloud. SAP's got their own BI, or business intelligence stuff, consumed it in there, and it's been going ever since. So yeah.
Okay. So in the government, the FinOps person need to be able to manage engineers.
Yep. Oh, there's that as well. Yeah, you got it. So I've got multiple hats. I got a finance hat. I've got an engineering hat. I got an infrastructure hat. I've got a FinOps hat. It's a lot.
Yeah, FinOps is definitely the role of many hats. That's for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Great. And Gordon, I think that's actually an amazing segue to learn more about you and the personal level. So you live today in Virginia, correct?
Correct. Yep. Yep. Northern Virginia. That's correct. Yep.
So do you live in Virginia because you work with the government, or you work with the government because you live in Virginia?
So Northern Virginia is a hot spot. So I'm 20 minutes away from the United States Capitol. So I think that plays a bit into it. Um, it's a weird story. I grew up in New England. I lived in California, the Bay Area, for 10 years. Got married, had kids. Within, I think, 2 years of having children, wife and I moved to Northern Virginia. We've been here for 19 years now. So because of the locale, that's really kind of influenced things. I just by chance end up, rolling into SAP NS2 as a part of my career at this point. So
Okay, I can totally understand the move to California, but moving back to the East Coast, that's tough.
yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I had to buy a shovel and everything to shovel snow, but it's all good.
Cool, cool. And Gordon, is there a book or a movie you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
So yeah, the latest one, and a little background on this. So my wife over the last couple of years has gotten into a lot of K-pop drama. So a couple of months ago, or maybe a month ago now, she was just like, "Oh, we got to watch this new Netflix show called K-pop Demon Hunters." And I'm like, "Oh, well, what's it about?" She was like, "Oh, it's a anime or a cartoon musical." I'm not big on musicals at all, so I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll watch it." And then, within the first 10, 15 minutes, it got me hooked. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. This isn't bad. So I like it. It's pretty good.
Okay, nice, nice. That's a nice and light recommendation. It's good. And what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah. So I got a lot of, I'll call them hobbies, that I do. So one, I like to ski. But that's a seasonal thing. I can only do that when there's snow in the winter. Goes back to me moving to Virginia. I don't mind shoveling, but anyway, so I like the snow. So anyway, so I get to go skiing a few days throughout the year, and there's nothing really in Virginia. I go out to Utah, Idaho, Colorado and
Oh, wow.
Montana and Wyoming go skiing. I hit the Rocky Mountains. That's one thing. But then the other thing, to be able to ski, I try to keep in shape. So I play soccer probably 3 to 4 times a week. So I get out a lot and I play in various leagues and also some groups that just you kind of, I won't say just pop up and get together, but yeah, play a bit of soccer and running as well. So
That's awesome. Soccer is a lot of fun, and the Rockies skiing is extreme. I used to go to a hill in Massachusetts to ski. You're going all the way. Cool, Gordon. And thank you for sharing all of this with us. I'm sure a lot of people would like to reach out, ask more questions. What is the best way to reach out to you?
yeah, reach out to me over LinkedIn. That's the best way. Let them know they saw me on your podcast. So happy to answer other questions and communicate. There's also the FinOps Slack channel. I'm there as well. That's probably even better. I'm there more often and responding to things. So that's another opportunity.
All of us for sure.
Mhm.
Cool. Gordon, thank you so much for sharing us all of this. I really like the point of view on the speed, like looking at speed with commitment, varying the speed of response based on the type of anomaly and how you treat speed with engineers, with being still aware to the risk to the data, which is obviously very, very important. So it was very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I would also like to thank our audience and listeners for joining us once again. I hope you enjoyed at least as much as I did and learned a lot at least as much as I did. Please share with your friend about the podcast. Gordon, thank you again for joining us. This has been another fascinating, fun episode of FinOps in Action. See you next time. That wraps up another episode of FinOps in Action. Thank you for joining. For show notes and more, please visit finopsinaction.com. This show is brought to you by Point 5, empowering teams to optimize cloud costs with deep detection and remediation tools that drive action.